Hello everybody, it's been a while since I've shot some videos. I almost forgot how I needed to set up my camera, if you can believe it. Today I'm doing a series of videos starting with skin tones. I thought I needed to update some of my videos. Some of my videos are almost 3 years old and I've changed my style just a little bit and my technique. So I wanted to share with you a few of these. Hopefully it will ease your pain when you're starting to learn to use the Copics, hopefully make it easier for you. And I'm really focusing on my flicking technique. This is a different technique than what Copic teaches you. I found after I had colored for about a year that this technique really helps you blend easier and it causes less frustration. It's just all around makes blending much easier for you. So hopefully even if you've done something else in the past, you'll give this a try. Today I'm going to use these new stamps. They're called La La Land Crafts. A friend of mine, Irina Blunt, actually is the artist of these, and they're very cute. They're excellent for Copic coloring, and they're excellent to teach Copics with just because they provide a large area to color. And they're cute, so all in all, fun to use when you're coloring. I'll put a link on here where you can find these. There's a bunch of new cuties out there. So I'm basically going to color the whole image today in different videos for you so you can see some different techniques. What I've already done is just colored a base coat of her skin. When I use skin tones, I use E11 and E00. So these are the two that I use 99% of the time. I don't need 3 markers with this. I know I teach by rule of 3, but for the skin tone I believe you can get away with using 2. And make it look like 3 Copics just by layering how much you put on. If you layer another color over itself, you change it by 1 degree. If you layer it 3 times or 4 times, you've changed it that much more. So you can create the look of 3 colors with just 2 Copic markers. This is especially helpful too if you're just starting your Copic collection. We all know that they're not cheap. They are worth the investment, but with this you can get a few more colors and create that third look if you need to. So I've already colored her. I put just a coat of E00. The reason I've done this is in my classes I tell everyone to lay your guidelines down, meaning lay where your light and your shadows are going to be. For this skin tone I know that E00 is going to be my lightest, so I went ahead and just colored all of her with that coat. Now I'm going to go in with my E11 and this is where my flicking starts. I want to show you on a piece of scrap paper what I'm talking about. When I color with the long side of the Copic. I almost never color with the point unless it's a very tiny part of the image, and then I might go in and do that. Also, something to remember is your tip should never bend when you're coloring. If it's bending, then you are coloring too hard and too much, and you're going to waste your ink, and it's just going to cause harder blending issues for you down the road. So keep that brush nib straight, don't use the point, and don't smush it down. This is the flicking technique, and that's the width of it. Obviously if part of your image is smaller you might have to vary that and make it a little bit smaller, but this is the flicking technique. When you put your marker down on the paper and you flick out, the place that you put the marker down is always the darkest spot. This is why I colored dark to light. Anytime your marker goes down on the paper and you start coloring, that's going to be your darkest spot. So if you just start coloring light to dark, you're going to have a lot of dark spots in the light that you're going to have to blend out or rework. So this is why I do dark to light. That's the main reason. When you flick out and up. So it's almost like a check mark on your paper. I tell people in my classes to do this on scrap paper until they get comfortable with it. You may not hold your marker exactly like mine, but as long as the flicking is the same, you'll get excellent results. Today I'm going to do a center light source. So the center of her face and her arms are each going to be the lightest. I only start on one side of the face at a time. I know that this is going to be my darker area. And I immediately pick up my E00 and I'm flicking just the edges. I'm just picking up the tails of that E11 and pulling it forward. I want her to be a little bit darker over here, so again I'm going in with E11, always flicking out, picking up with the E00 and flicking out again. I'm going to go to the other side. Work in small sections. Don't try to take too big of sections on when you're coloring. Then it gives your markers time to dry on the paper and it won't blend as easily for you. A little bit darker here on this side of her. And each time blending out with my E00. It's a very light touch. Now I'm just going over that center just to even it up a little bit. And always let it dry. So I'm going to move down to her neck area and her arms, and then I can come back and I can fix anything on her face that I might need to. Once the ink is dry, that's going to be the true color that your image is. So work on small sections, let it dry, go to another section, and then you can come back. Don't keep adding color when it's wet, or you'll get a color that's not so true and maybe darker than you anticipated. I know that under her chin and neck area is going to be a little dark coming down to the sides. So I'm going to add that E11 there, and then again flicking, smaller flicks this time because less area to flick in, but I'm going to blend that out. There's her neck area. And then her arms. Same thing with the face. The center line of that arm is going to be light because it's a center light source. So kind of under her arm where it's going to round away from the light, and then that top area, just a little bit, is going to be dark as well. And then I'm bringing E00 in to feather it. Yes, I've gone on the lines a little bit, but I can clean. Skin tones are very easy to clean up with your colorless blender. They're light enough that they smush back in there easy. So I'm not worried about that right now. So you just want to grab the tail ends of that color. Remember never to take your light over the dark. You always want to be moving away from the dark. A lighter color has more colorless blender in it, so when you use it over or you push towards a dark color, you're essentially moving the dark color or changing it. It's working like a colorless blender, so keep that in mind. I see a lot of projects where there's kind of a muddy, weird line, and usually that's the light coming into the dark. The light should never come into the dark. It should always be moving away. And again, you have to vary your flicking size to the area that you're working in. You might have to do it a couple times. Everyone has to do it a few times. Don't feel bad if you have to go over and do it a few more times than you expected. Now I'm going to move back up to the face. I want to blend this out just a little bit more, so I'm very lightly going to bring some color over and grab it with my E00 very lightly. This side looks pretty good to me. I just want to come up here and even that out. I like to add blush to my cheeks. I think most people in life realistically have some color in their cheeks, unless you're ill, of course, but it's not something you have to do. I use R20 when I do this. You can use whatever color tickles your fancy. I don't say in any of my classes that you have to follow me exactly. I'm worried about you getting the technique, not what colors you use. When I do cheeks, again, let me move this aside. This is what I'm doing. So it's essentially the same, using the same length of the Copic nib. And then I go in and add some cheeks. I'm going to color her lips here. And then if it's a little dark on the edges that you don't like as much, come in and just flick out from it. Don't flick in towards it. You'll change the color of it. And that will just softly blend those edges. Okay, so don't flick in towards your cheek color. Grab the ends and just pull them out and they'll blend a little bit better for you. On her arms, I'm going to come in using the tip now, very lightly. I'm just going to darken up some of this area. I just want this part of her to be just a tad bit darker. Also a tip, when you're coloring, most of us don't color huge landscapes in areas that need 15 to 20 to 30 minutes of time to color, because when you color you should work in sections. Right now I'm just doing her skin tones. Keep your markers uncapped. When you have to pull off your cap each time, you're wasting a few seconds. Those few seconds your ink is drying, which means that it's going to be harder to blend. So if you leave 2 or 3 markers uncapped for up to 5 minutes, maybe even 10 minutes, it's not going to hurt the marker. Remember, the ink inside here is airtight, but it'll save you less blending time and just make it easier instead of uncapping. Always in my classes I hear lots of capping noises, so I always like to point that out. But that's how she would be done with her skin tone. Now I have my colorless blender, and I can come in here. If I wasn't going to cut her out, I'm just using the chisel end of my colorless blender, and I'm just pushing lightly. Don't push too much, don't push too far, the color that went outside the lines. It's just an easy way to clean up all your boo-boos, mistakes. Yes, even I color outside the lines occasionally. It happens, but there are lots of ways to fix it. You can cut it out. You can use your colorless blender. Also, her eyes, she has almost anime eyes, so I'm just going to clean this part of her whites up a little bit where I got the skin tone in there. So I'm just kind of pushing it out of that eye area. This is an easy way to do it. If you have like the Copic opaque white paint, you could go in, or if you're like me and you love the Sharpie white poster paint pen, you could use that as well. But there she is, all done. One of my favorite things to do is with my Sharpie poster paint pen is usually I'll go in and add a little highlight to the cheek, or maybe freckles. It's not something you have to do again, that's just something that I do. So the next video will concentrate on her little tutu.